Hi, this is Willie Ren. I'm about to discuss automated performance testing. Welcome, this is part one of automated performance testing series. And here we're going to discuss automation of a performance test. Now, specifically, I'm going to be discussing within this test use cases that we could actually do. For example, the first is load testing. We could actually determine the server performance at different loads. Second, our goal is to be able to demonstrate stress testing. And what else can we do? Scalability testing, for example, we can actually measure the performance of all the servers on a certain amount of users. And do we need to scale up or scale out? So in here, we will be able to identify of the performance of the servers, and we can decide for scalability. And fourth is we get to understand the processing time. And fifth, we will have the capability of measuring server hardware performance. And six, measuring database server performance, so we could actually see if the database server is actually performing properly. And will there be like code bottlenecks? We will have full visibility, so we may have given the hardware specs, the correct hardware specs like the CPU, ROM, network capability. So, but we still having a slowness in the performance of the application. So it may be the code design or the software architecture. So we can also identify it here. And last is you may be able to test on a certain load, but let's say on a continuously 4 hours, for example, 10,000 users accessing the application. Will the server hold? Will the application hold on the correct response time, or will it perform properly as expected? Now, we're gonna be using load generator to be able to test the performance. So how it works, it's actually divided into three tools like the virtual user generator, controller, and the analysis tool. So what the ViewGen actually does? So what it does is actually it record the steps of the application under test, and once it's actually recorded, we're gonna pull that script in the controller. This is where we're gonna set the amount of virtual users to test the application that will mimic the real-time scenario of the application under test. And this is where we're gonna set the pass and fail scenarios of the performance test. For example, the response times that we actually desire, and also the average throughput. Those are one of the um, SLAs that we're gonna set on this demo. And third is once the performance has been tested, it's gonna generate a report, and this is where we're gonna view it on the analysis tool. Now I'm gonna switch on virtual user generator so we could actually see how performance testing works in this tool. Now we go to file and we create a solution. And here you could actually see all the different protocols that this tool actually does. So from a .NET, Citrix, DNS, Java. So we do have like LDOP, MQTT, Oracle. It does support SAP as well, Cybele, SMTPs, Windows sockets. So there's quite a few protocols that actually supports. So there's a lot of flexibility. And now on this demo, I'm going to be using True Client Web. So this is the protocol that we're going to be testing right now. So the name of the application is Advantage Online Shopping. I would say underscore demo, name it. Um, Click create. Now the solution has been loaded. We're gonna do a record. So develop script. Okay. Now it launches the browser to be tested, and as you can see on the left hand side, this will be the recording tool, which will actually record all the steps on the right. So let me just grab the URL, copy the application under test, insert it to the URL, press enter. Now I'm gonna do a record. Now, as you can see, it has automatically logged the URL to the left. Now I'm gonna click on laptops, scroll down, and I'm gonna choose HP Chromebook 14G1. Now I'm gonna add it to the cart, press home. Okay. Now I'm gonna stop. Right. So let me just create a very simple functionality, a step-by-step functionality to do a performance test. So right now, this navigation, we can actually surround it into a transaction. So this transaction will be like a function or a verification that we're gonna be testing. So we're gonna be dividing these steps into different transactions, I would say. So here is let's say navigate to URL. Okay. Now um, I can also create a start a transaction. So I would probably name this select and choose. Now I'm gonna end the transaction. Okay. So here I'm gonna like surround this with another transaction. Probably let's name it add card and choose this one. Um, Surround with transaction again. So let's say home. Right. So now this transactions is actually we can test the performance um, on a transactional level. So for example, this transaction of navigation, we can actually identify what will be the performance of this transaction alone, or individually as transactions, or as a whole as the application under test. What else can we do here? So we can actually also create functions aside from transactions. So right click, group into a new function. So let's say I'm gonna name it item. So I'll name AOS item. Now, if I click the function libraries, you could see the function here. And now it's actually wrapped up into a function, this transaction. Now, if I go back to the actions, you can actually see all the transactions in this tab. Now, what else can we do here? We can also make it dynamic. So we click the transactions and arguments. We can actually create variables here and change the navigation URL. But for this demo, we're not going to be doing that. Now I'm going to save it, press exit. Now, as you can see, this is so business friendly and without creating scripts out of the box, by just clicking the desired functions that we would like to verify for its performance, it creates individual scripts, and it's very handy. And we could actually be productive and be able to make a performance test by just knowing the functions of the application. Right, so let me just save this one. Now it is saved. Uh, let's exit and let's open the script at at the controller, and this controller will start the performance testing. Now the runner controller is now loading. Right, so now it is loaded. This is what we created earlier, AOS underscore demo. As you can see, we could actually test different scripts by just moving them to the right. But for this demo, we're gonna be only testing one script at this point of time. So I'm gonna press OK. Right, so now it's been loaded. On the left, you can see start virtual users. Let me just double click that. And we can actually decide how many virtual users we're going to be testing and the time, how long will the test is going to run. So at this test, I'll be just doing 5 and 2 because the capacity of my um, machine here is quite low. So I don't want my machine crashing during the performance testing. So right, and so to keep the demo short, I'm gonna make it 5 minutes as well instead of 15 minutes. I'll press apply, press OK. Now, as you can see on the right hand side, there's a ramp up and ramp down time. So when it ramps up, it's gonna test 5 virtual users for 5 minutes as we set, and it's gonna ramp down after 5 minutes. So it will be like a total of 7-ish minutes together to do the performance test. Now I'm gonna establish the SLA. So as mentioned earlier, this is where we're gonna set um, the, the standards or service level agreement on what will be the passing of the performance test. So right now I'm gonna click total hits status per run and press next. So I'm gonna put the threshold into 2. Go next. So I'm gonna click finish. Now we managed to create one SLA. I'm gonna create another one. So from here, um, I'm gonna choose transaction response time, and I'm gonna use average. Press next. So right now you can actually see all the transactions that we created earlier. So select, choose, navigate to URL. So we're gonna choose all that. Now all the functions has been chosen correctly. I'm gonna go next. I'm gonna keep it on less than 2 and greater than 2 virtual users. So from here, we can also choose the amount of what we're gonna be testing. So running virtual users throughput at this time I'm gonna be using running virtual users. Duplicated that. Let me just correct that. Now press next. Right now I'm gonna put everything on default. Press next and go finish. And now the SLA is now been created. The amount of virtual users is to test the application is also been created. Now we're gonna run the test. I'll go to the left and start the scenario. I'm gonna press yes here. Now the performance test are started. Now you can see the graphs being shown right here. So you see the number of virtual users. So we started on 2. Now it's ramped up to 5. So so with the elapsed time, so from the 20 seconds, now we actually within those 20 seconds to 40 seconds, we can actually see the hits per second and the elapsed time. As you can see, all the fluctuating data points there. And on the right, you can see the response time on each virtual users. Response time, virtual users, and the elapsed time for each transaction. So as you can see, these are the different colors and different transactions. If you click that, you can see here, the green is navigate to URL, and we get to see that 8.065 is the maximum minutes per second. The minimum is 1.1, and the average is 3 seconds. So we also get to see the standard deviation and the last response time. So from here, we can actually already visualize the the performance of the application under test depending on the virtual users that we actually set. So also, as we navigate through the transactions that we created earlier, so we can actually isolate per transaction and verify the performance per transaction with a certain amount of virtual users. So what else can we do here? As we go to the left, we got the available graphs. So the runtime, we have the runtime graphs, we have the transaction graphs, and we have the web resource graphs, and we can actually see the different measurements that we can actually see and do. System resource graphs, network graphs. So this is very important, the network graph. So we can actually see the network performance of the application under test. So we have web servers, IIS, active server pages. X, as you can see, we have SQL Server here, MQTT. So different protocols is actually called. So there's a lot of information here that can be digested and can give us some real-time decisions and proof that that the application is performing well or not performing well according to different circumstances that we actually established. Right. So on the right hand side, you can see the past transactions, the elapsed time, and the hits per second. And right now, if we click that, we get information of what are the past transactions. Let's press close. And we can also have failed transactions. Well, at this demo, I made it really low, so my computer will not crash. So right now, if we actually increase the transactions, no, I mean the virtual users, so we could actually see failed transactions here because of the power of my laptop right now. I made it really low, so um, but for the demo standpoint, we can actually see what this tool and how powerful this tool can actually help us. Now, I'm going to stop the performance testing, stop the scenario. Now it's stopping. Now we see a, um, a dialog box actually appeared and it actually generated data already for us as a report. So now let's actually view the report by just going to the results tab, then analyze results. And as I said earlier, so it's going to load the load runner analysis tool so we could actually view the report of the performance test. Now it's actually loading the report. Going to 82. Right, fantastic. Now the report has been created. Now, as you can see here, um, on the left, we have a summary report, running virtual users, hits per second, the throughput, transaction summary, and the average transaction response time. Right. So here from the top, we can see the duration of the test and the test scenario. And because we set it to 5 virtual users, so it's been logged as 5. So actually written the throughput here, and we get to understand the number of hits as well, average hits per second, and we will be able to see the HTTP responses summary as well, which is fantastic. If it's a pass or fail, it's a post, or it's a 200. So I'm going to show you that in a bit. So these are the transactions that were created, and the failure ratio, the failure value. As we scroll down, we can actually see the minimum, average, and maximum response time. Okay. Now, if we go to the graphs to the left, now we actually see the running virtual users, hits per second. So hits per second versus the elapsed time, the throughput. So we get to see the network performance, and this is the transaction summary. So these are the transactions that we actually created and their response time. And this is the average response time per transaction. As you can see, the blue, it picks up from the 15 going to the 18, and it drops significantly. And from here on this graph, we can actually visualize that um, select and choose is actually taking longer than the other transactions, like the navigate URL, which is second to the most highest, and we got home, and we got the add cart, which has uh, the fastest response time, and the elapsed scenario time in minutes per second. So what else can we actually do with this graph? So let's right click and let's click auto correlate. Now on this tool of auto correlation, we can actually um, create a scenario and find the performance within these two bars, the green one and the red one. So we can actually start and drag it. For example, 12:01 a.m., 12:02 a.m., now up to 12:05 a.m., and isolate the performance of the application or the transaction with this time area. And once we press OK, we can actually see the trend is more isolated within the time frame that we actually created. Thanks for watching my channel. Now I hope you continue and watching the performance testing series.